think about Martin Brundle, who will be making the start for Toyota from the pole. Remember, he is a basically retired racing driver. He has not run anywhere for exactly a year since he raced here, and yet he is now obliged to see if he can take the lead for this prestigious beginning to the race. And remember, that lead gets you in all the pictures across Europe and gets you in all the movies and press releases that go on out afterwards. So that is all coming up. We're going to have the start very soon. Stay with us. We are back live at Le Mans. This is the formation lap. The two Toyotas who have been so fast and dominated everything in the speed category sitting out front now. They will make a burst, of course, for the first turn and try to lead the first lap. You see the little BMW there in third just at the moment, and a Mercedes back there in fourth. A lot of question marks surrounding the Mercedes-Benz. Let's take a look at just what happened last year at the start. You'd have thought that this was not the start to a 24-hour endurance race, but the start of a Formula One race. Bernd Schneider in the Mercedes in the right, on the right, Martin Brundle in the Toyota on the left. Watch this, they come up a hill and make a little chicane, and you will see them make contact. This is Formula One racing, gentlemen, not endurance racing. That's how prestigious it is to lead out of the first turn. You see Bernd Schneider on the inside. He takes the lead briefly. Now Martin Brundle lines up the Toyota and ultimately passed him into the lead on the end of that first lap. That's how fast the Toyotas are. They are out of the turn called Mulsanne, and they're headed right now for the little town of Arnage. Gentlemen, let's take a look at the Porsche storylines.
Well, very interestingly, I think you alluded to the first one, Sam. It's the first turn leader. We saw that with Mercedes last year. They wanted to go for it. I think maybe we'll see the Panos go to the front. They're very untested. They know they're fast. They have no idea about reliability. If they can get to the front, run competitively in the first hour or two, as you said, a lot of exposure.
The other thing that's back this year are long tails. We've got 5 places on this track where these cars reach 200 miles an hour, 218 miles an hour in fact. So long tails are back to give these cars that sleek look, just like the Porsche that won here in 1970 in the hands of Richard Appel. We also have another tremendous war on hand, and that is between the tyres. Michelin versus Bridgestone. Bridgestone, we're used to seeing them in Formula One. Michelin used to be in Formula One. Big race here for these guys. Bridgestone, of course, on the Mercedes, and of course Michelin on the Toyotas. But we've got a lot of other tyre companies in there as well.
Indeed, and of course we have the impact of the American influence, not just in terms of cars with the Viper and the Panos being very exciting, but drivers as well. We have Johnny O'Connell, we have a number of drivers, Bill Oberlin in there as well. Let's take a look now at the starting lineup for the 67th 24 Hours of Le Mans. The first row, it's all Toyota and the 2 GT1s, number 1 and 2 respectively. The second row is the BMW, started by Leto, and a Mercedes, the fastest of the Mercedes of Schneider. Row 3, the Panos, great effort, and a BMW Motorsport factory team car. Row 4, another of the AMG Mercedes, and the third of the Toyota GT1s. Row 5, the Audi R8R, that's the open top, and of course you would have seen Mark Webber in the Mercedes in that 10th starting position. Profits for that car was withdrawn, as we alluded to earlier. Row 6, the other Audi from Yost, the open top car, and the first of the Nissans from Nissan Motorsport. In the 7th row, the Lola Judd, that is so fast, and of course the JB Motorsports Ferrari, the lone Ferrari. Row 8 is the BMW private entered, although factory supported entry, as well as another of the Nismo cars, this a Courage. Then in row number 9, the second of the Panos Spiders and the other Price and Bisher privateer BMW. Row 10, David, is the Courage Nissan and the first of the Audi Coupes. And row 11 is the Lola Ford Roush-powered machine and the Conrad Motorsports Lola.
On row 12, we have one of the Audi R8s. That's Johansson Ortelli, a closed car, and an LMP 99, the only Ferrari here. On row 13, a Courage C50 with Henri Pescarolo, 4-time winner, and a Ride in Scott Ford Mark II with Philip Gash. Row 14, another Ride in Scott Mark II with Apicella Rosenblatt and Shane Lewis, an American driver. Alongside those, running the Chrysler Viper GSRs. Then we had a whole nest of Vipers. Then we've got 2 on row 15 there. That's Tommy Archer from the States, Justin Bell. Alongside them, Clerico, Lanyo, and Martinol. Row 16 is a Chrysler Viper GSR. Alongside him, another GSR, Armin, Hugenholtz, and Seiler. Row 17, we have 2 Porsche 911 GT2s, the first, Sherry, Gousselard, and Bourdais. Row 18, another Chrysler Viper GTS, and alongside that, a Porsche 911 GT2, Franz Conrad driving that. 19, another Chrysler Viper alongside the Porsche 911. Row 20, Chrysler Viper, Porsche 999. Row 21, Porsche 993 alongside the 911. Row 22, Porsche 996 alongside them. 996 driven by Bob Wallach, who's yet to win this race. And on the final row, with 2 Porsche 911 GT2s.
Well, the field right now working through the Ford chicane. You can see the pace car is in, and they are coming up, and boy, they did not go into much of a formation of side-by-side. We immediately go green. That's a bit of a surprise, and the 2 Toyotas lead in. The Mercedes is third as they dive into the Dunlop chicane.
And the first of those BMWs poking his nose in there. That's the car of J.J. Later, but he settles for the 4th spot as they all go through turn 1 cleanly over the hill under the Dunlop Bridge. Such a famous picture of Le Mans, that is. The 2 Toyotas already, Martin Brundle stretching his lead as he goes into the S's, all nice and wide, lots of runoff area now, didn't have this in our day. Then the 2 Mercedes behind him. That Mercedes snuck around the BMW. There's the 6 and the 5 car. Right behind him, the J.J. Later car. And look at that, the Panos just behind them.
Panos right there, and that start by the Mercedes now running in 4th. An awesome start by, I think that was Peter Dumbrek, and the starting car, number 5, jumped from 7th into 4th. Gives you an idea, again, of the importance of running up front early in this event. A great start. Last year we saw that huge start by the BMW. The Mercedes has done it here.
Well, this is, of course, the pictures of the scene in the papers all around the world tomorrow morning. There's the 19. That's one of the BMW V12 engine cars.
A year-old car, not one of the brand new ones. We see
Spins
a replay of the incident here.
Oh dear.
Oh, right in the middle of
the 2 cars spinning.
Took off one of the Panoses.
Yeah.
The slower running, and another BMW. That is a shame.
That's the number 19 Team Go entry of Matsushita, Kato, and Nakaya having an early off. But up front again, Brundle has already really stretched it out, going into the 2nd of the Mulsanne chicanes.
Remember, Brundle is a driver who has not raced for a whole year, so except for the testing of this car, which he has done extensively, that's all his time behind the wheel. But he's doing an absolutely beautiful job, and look at the 2 Mercedes have now pulled into 3rd and 4th. It's in the very, very fast sections, like right here, that the Mercedes have had their aerodynamic problems.
Well, it's going over that rise, isn't it, where Weber...
seem to get air underneath him, going to the Mulsanne hairpin for the first time. And here's the Mercedes trying to take away that 2nd spot, coming up to one of the fastest areas here. That over that rise, there's a slight right-hand sweep, and another right-hand sweep after that, which takes you down to where Weber crashed on Thursday evening. The Mercedes giving that 2nd Toyota there a tough run for its money. Both Mercedes glued together. Right here is where that car went over on Thursday night.
That gives you an idea of how brave those 2 Mercedes drivers are. Schneider, of course, in that lead car, and Dumbrek in the 2nd one, both of them running right up behind the cars in front, knowing what had happened to Weber in that same spot. They want a piece of this 2nd place here, and are pushing very hard to get just that.
That's the Boots and McNish car. Ralph Calliner's also driving with them. 2 Mercedes right behind the BMW. Coming up again behind. This is the quick rundown out of Arnage up to the Porsche curve. Very fast here. Up again to 200 miles an hour, just right about here as you swing to that little left-hand kink before taking this first right-hander of the Porsche curve. Just, these are some of the great corners. Very fast right, terrifically fast left-hander over a bridge right here. We see it over that bridge. Then it turns into another right-hander, which is an off-camber corner, and the cars want to push wide in as the day goes on and the rubber picks up. Then this really fast left-hander onto the straight run back towards the pit area here with a couple of very fast kinks and then 2 really slow chicanes right before the start-finish line. It's a very technical course. There's a lot goes on.
And David, watching the cars, you can see how hard they're pushing. You think of a 24-hour race as being an endurance race, but the cars are so reliable these days that the drivers, you see right over the curbings and everything, they push them as hard as you would push a Formula One car.
Something flying up there.
Seconds of what they could qualify at.
Now that Panos that took that BMW out there at turn 1, which we saw right here just on the first lap of the race, that was the Johnny O'Connell car. So let's hope it didn't damage his car as he went across that gravel. There is the Panos driven by David Brabham, which qualified so well on both Wednesday and Thursday.
And you see the open Audis outpacing the Audi coupes. Audi has 4 cars in the race, 2 of them open, 2 of them coupes, and for some reason the open cars are outperforming the coupes. And we'll talk, oh boy, look at that.
Oh, Schneider.
Schneider really giving it the stick there. We'll talk in a little while about the difference in the rules between the open and closed cars, but right now, as you can see, the first 4 cars are all closed coupes, and the first open car is that BMW you see just disappearing over the rise.
And the Paynos, then another BMW right behind the Paynos. Great aerial shot of the chicane. The 2 chicanes on the main Mulsanne straight. One is a right-left. The next one is a left-right. So it gives the driver woo! Boy, oh boy, getting right up on
Dumbrek, the back end stepped out. He corrected, and of course that changed his track out by about 3 feet, and he went over the approach to the curb. Here's the rise that has really been legend throughout the years when Mulsanne was not interrupted by the chicanes. You just open the number 19 car. Remember, that is the car that spun in the Dunlop chicane on the opening lap of Matsushita, Kato, and Nakaya, and he is down in the pits.
Yeah, well, Kato was driving, Hiroki Kato. I'm being pushed out of the way here. New tyres are going on. He's flat spotted those. They're wiping the windscreen, but there doesn't seem to be any other damage at all.
Good news indeed that it's simply some flat spotted tires. I'm sure they're going to give it a quick check, but they'll be able to get him back out, and if it's just flat spotted tires, obviously they'll be able to get back up to speed pretty quickly. A good look as the cars exit the Mulsanne chicane, or excuse me, the hairpin now, and start heading back down through what is now, they say, is the quickest section of the track, the run from the Mulsanne hairpin down to Indianapolis. They built tremendous speed through this sequence of corners, and there's the second place Toyota. As we are watching, of course, in the pit lane, they continue to work on the BMW at this point, and boy, they're for just doing tires, they're working on something inside the cockpit and trying to figure something out. Maybe now they're going after the rear bodywork.
Well, there could be gravel in that car because he did go right through the gravel trap, and if you get it around the pedals, certainly, or any other vital part of the inside, we may see them try to vacuum it out.
Well, we have seen sometimes these cars with those very low noses tend to be scoops. Even if they skip through sideways, they may have some concerns about a jam throttle with the gravel.
That's true. The brand new cars open. Right away now, Alan de Cadenet has a word.
Yeah, I'm down here, obviously, in the pits. They've taken the back off the car. They're all in a bit of a panic. There's something going on in there. I think he's complained of something loose in the back. Every time you go off the road, you run over a curb, you get gravel in. So really, they've had a good cautionary look round. They've just brought the back out. They're now about to put the back on the car. I think they're satisfied nothing's broken. But everybody's being very careful here, of course. You don't want your car out there after it's had an off over the curbs without having a chance to eyeball everything. Make sure it's safe. This back's going on. I think he's going to go out there in about another 30 seconds off the line. He'll be away. Sam?
Well, Alan, what we were just beginning to get into there, your excellent report, was that the new cars, you see, this is an older car, but the new cars, the BMWs, have the headlights positioned so low that they're having visibility problems, particularly in the very fast sections of the track. We'll get a good look at those cars a little bit later, and they fitted a single Cyclops light up around the driver's chest.
So as we watch the cars heading toward Eau Rouge, we are very early into the 24 hours of Le Mans. Welcome back to Le Mans. As we went to break, I mentioned that the cars were heading toward one of the great corners of the world. I was thinking great corner, so Eau Rouge came out, and of course it's Tertre Rouge as they head onto the Mulsanne. And there is a good look at one of the Mercedes. That is the car that is running in fourth spot, the second of the 2 cars that remain. And Bouchou, Heidfeld, and Dumbrek are driving. However, the number 9 Audi, the Audi Sport UK Coupe, is down in the pits. Andrew?
Yes, I can't see what the problem is at the moment. They're cleaning the screen, but they don't seem to be doing any other work at all. This is a bit of a mystery to me. They're actually not working on anything at all other than cleaning the screen.
Well, one wonders if perhaps in the opening laps some debris was deposited on, and I mean, at the speeds they're running, you get blinded in that. Why not early into the race get in and get that cleaned?
It does seem strange, though, that a driver wouldn't put up with it. This is the Tony Southgate designed machine. It is certainly one of the most beautiful cars here, and I think Audi has a great future. They are the slowest currently of the 3 German manufacturers to tackle the race this year. There's an awful lot of prestige on the line for Mercedes. Notice that you see the inside of the front wheel there. The wheel arch has been cut away. That was an innovation developed by the designer of the Toyota, and it has been widely imitated. The rules state that if you look down directly from above the car, you cannot see any suspension components or moving components, but the way that fender is shaped, you can't see anything if you look down directly from above it.
He must have had an off of some sort. I mean, they were cleaning everything. They're cleaning the fenders and the side windows, and either that or he got really swamped with oil from somewhere. But that, of course, is putting him a lap down.
Very early in the going as well, so we'll have to keep an eye on that. And the Mercedes now, the number 9 Audi, just came out of the pits and really bottled up the Mercedes behind it, and they swing by now.
You see him shifting there with the paddle shifters on the steering wheel.
Taken right out of the McLaren Mercedes program. And so obviously problems for that number 9 Audi. We're still curious as to why, Andrew.
Stefan, what was the problem there? Surprise stop.
Yeah, he came in because he had a lot of oil on the windscreen. Somebody must have dumped a lot of oil or blown up in front of him, so nothing major, just cleaned the windscreen up.
You've won the race before. This is Audi's first time. Can Audi win this year?
Anybody can win. You know, a little bit tough, but, you know, anybody can win the race.
Okay, well, Stefan Johansson telling us there that it was a problem with oil over the windscreen.
It must have been really bad.
Andrew, at least somebody was there to clean it. In 1970, I had a car blow up in front of me on the track. Got the windshield covered with oil, had to come in. All the mechanics were asleep. It was 3 o'clock in the morning. I had to get out, fix it myself, got back in the car, went on. When I finally ended my stint, they said, you know, you had one really long lap. I said, yes, damn it, I did.
We're on board momentarily with the number 5 AMG Mercedes, the CLR LM as they call it. And that, of course, is the car of Gushue, Heidfeld, and Dumbreck. Back on board. And that gives you the idea that this may be a 24-hour race, but they are driving very, very hard in those cars.
They have 3 drivers per car, and the idea is each man has plenty of time off, and you're supposed to go just as hard as you possibly can, conceivably avoiding running over the steeper of the curves, but everything else is let her rip.
Through the Mulsanne hairpin, just before that was that rise that caught out Weber for the second time. It's the time he went airborne, moving over to one of the onboards for a battle a little bit deeper in the pack. There is that lead of the Mercedes cars right now.
Notice the way, Greg, the Mercedes is bumping up and down. It doesn't look real stable on the road compared to the Toyotas. Now, the Porsche GT1s that won the race here last year had that same look, that short coupled bouncy look. So it doesn't necessarily mean that that's the source of their aerodynamic problems. It's just a point. They are obviously very different in the way they're suspended than these Toyotas, which just run with such a stable look to them.
Well, the new CLR Mercedes is, you know, it has some similarities, of course, to the CLK that ran last year, but it is virtually a brand new car. There is a good look at the Dams Lola, which is Drio Arnoux Motorsports. That's the Judd-powered car that surprised so many people earlier in the year. In fact, a Judd-powered Lola sat on pole at Sebring, won at Road Atlanta in one of the earlier races, and has been very quick in testing. And they have taken, it's the 3.5-liter Judd engine, I think, from the 1994 Formula One. And what they've done is they've punched it out to 4 liters, lowered the revs a little bit, and it has become a very effective endurance.
It sounds absolutely fantastic. And he's been harried by, I think that's Bill Auberlen there in the dark-colored BMW from last year. It's got a 98 spec engine. Right behind him is the remaining Nissan, the team car to this, driven by Van der Poel. Crashed heavily on Wednesday night down at Tertre Rouge. These 3 guys having a good run, back in the pack just a little bit.
Bill Auberlen doing a really beautiful job, and I think he has a great future with BMW, who has increasing confidence in him. He and his co-driver Soper are going to push this car hard. You see him obviously making a hey, hi, how are you? I would love to get by you kind of maneuver right here, and I think they're going to do very well. Bill Auberlen, of course, finished 4th last year against all odds as a rookie, pushing a McLaren BMW really to its very limits.
These guys are racing now for 12th, 13th, and 14th. But obviously, no quarters being given or asked here at this early stage. The way these guys are climbing the curb, the leaders are up and down over these curves, putting these cars through terrific stress and strain. When you think they're going to go 3,000 miles between now and this time tomorrow?
A lot of confidence. The Nissan taking a little bit of a look as we head into one of the chicanes. Not just then. A lot going on here at Le Mans early in the going. We'll be back.
The 24 Hours of Le Mans used to start with drivers running to their cars. This dramatic beginning to racing's longest event was last used in 1969. Concern over congestion at the start and the fact that many drivers neglected to fasten their seatbelts in order to make a faster getaway caused the Le Mans start to be banned in the interests of safety. It was just as well for David. It was really embarrassing to see him try to get over to his car.
I remember one time the mechanic left it in reverse too, which is even better.
People would jump into the car and get the gear shift up the trouser leg. And there were so many incidents, but the master of the Le Mans start was Sterling Moss. He could beat anybody out of the hole every time.
He just jumped in over the top of those cars, because when they started to have more closed cars like those in I did the last Le Mans start here in 1969 with a GT40. You know, it had the seat belts hung up in the air and all sorts of complicated effort, but you're still putting the seat belts on, going down the front straight at 200 miles an hour, trying to find the lap strap. Where the hell is it? It's down here somewhere. I'm sitting on it.
I remember Dan Gurney talking about that in '67, and somebody said, well, when did you buckle up? And he said, well, you know, your biggest break's on the Mulsanne. They said, well, how did you do it? And he goes, well, how do you do it when you're reaching for your fries? You know, I mean, you jam your knee up against the steering wheel and start buckling. And as you said, over 200 miles an hour. Exciting as it was, safety won out rather wisely.
Yeah.
The lead Toyota has just turned a lap at 3:37.4. Extremely fast for this stage of development, but there is more on tap there. I spoke of the difference between the open and closed car. The closed cars are called LMGTPs. The LM, of course, stands for Le Mans. The open cars are called just LMPs for LM prototypes. The GTPs are the Toyotas, the Mercedes, the Audi. The rest of them, BMW, Courage, Panos, Nissan, Lola, Riley and Scott Ferrari, are all the open ones. And it's very interesting. The open car, you're allowed a little bit more tire, and the closed car, you got a little less tire. Greg, a couple of other small differences, but the point is, it seems to swing in balance. It's better to have a closed car because it gives you more top speed.
Well, the aero is exactly what everybody was looking for. The thing that they changed that they thought might give the open-top Spider a little advantage with that bigger tire was they also gave that car the diffuser. They couldn't run that last year, while the GT1, as it was called last year, the coupes or whatever, they could run the diffuser. They gave that to the Spiders, and with the wider tire, they thought that might, you know, pay a little bit more. But again, here, as David, you were talking about the fact there are some 4 different spots on this track where they're running well over 200 miles an hour. You see one of the marshals giving the blue flag there to one of the GTS cars as the Toyota swings through, hits traffic now. The aero package here is so crucial, and with the Spider, you get a lot of air down into the cockpit, swirling around, slowing them down. That's why we've seen the advent now. If you look at the BMW and the Panos, they don't have the roll hoop that goes, as you take a look at the Riley and Scott, you see how the roll hoop there goes over and covers both seats. Now, the newer cars coming out, they found a little gap in the rules where it's just one little roll hoop right behind the driver, cleans up the air to the rear wing, and eliminates a lot of air down into the cockpits.
That was Marco Apicella that brought that Riley and Scott into the pits there. That's the car being driven by Shane Lewis, the American. He was telling me this morning he's only had 3 laps of practice so far. And here comes the 10 car, the other Audi coupe in. Another Audi UK run by Richard Lloyd. The last time I drove here was for Richard Lloyd Porsche.
Not a promising start for Audi with both their coupes in. They actually tried both forms of car. They have open cars and closed cars. Paradoxically, they're slow. Their faster cars were the open cars, but I think when everything is refined and said and done, they may find their closed cars the fastest.
I really think the reason for that is the coupes here, the closed cockpit cars. They were developed far later than Yost had the open cockpit cars, and that's really been the difference so far. The car's getting pushed away, Andrew.
Yes, there's obviously a problem down here with Audi. It looks as if it's a routine stop to start with, then they just open the door. Andy Wallace is at wheel, and they're now going to reverse it back into the garage. And I'll come back to you in a couple of minutes when we've grabbed one of the drivers to find out what the problem is here.
Interestingly, they can use 4 men over the wall to work on the car if it's still in pit lane. The minute you put it back in the garage, you can have any number of men you want to work on it. So they conceivably may get to work with some pretty serious stuff back in there.
One of the biggest problems that car has experienced in testing and really held it up in pre-qualifying was overheating. They were having real problems getting air ducted into the engine, and that was creating some real problems for the car. It shares some components with the open cockpit car, but obviously the air around it ducted very differently. We'll be back as Andy Wallace. He's done for a while. Speed Weekend International here on Speed Vision, and you got a great look here. That is Eric Bernard in the number 12 Panos, and he is in the thick of traffic. And you can see Tom Christensen, I believe, in the excuse me, that's the number 15 BMW, and I believe that might be Pierluigi Martini that is trying to thread his way through traffic a little more effectively than Bernard in the Panos, trying to close up just a little bit. And boy, now they finally get a little bit of a break as they are working through some of the, I believe, the Porsche curves here. And he gets, well, look at that car start to bounce as he gets into that section of track as well. This track very fast, but there are sections where it's rough.
It's generally pretty smooth. There's a couple of circuit corners here which are quite quick corners, which have got those bumps in. Going through Tertre Rouge the other night, we were watching them. Boy, they were bouncing around through there. And the front of that Panos was looking very bumpy as he came through the approach, the Porsche curve. Again, it's about a 200-mile-an-hour approach.
It's got to be interesting to drive the Panos because the seating so far back gives you a completely different sensation for the car. And when we talked to the drivers, they said, you know, when you first drove it and you got in a slide, you just felt really strange about the whole thing. Now, Andrew is down there with Andy Wallace. Maybe he can ask about that.
Well, certainly Andy Wallace is looking very sweaty. Had a lot of gearbox problems, Andy, in qualifying. Is that what's happened again?
Yeah, unfortunately, we're not having a very good Le Mans this year because the car was going so well in testing, and we've come in, we've encountered a gearbox problem which we didn't think we were going to have. On the first lap, the car was really good, very, very good, but unfortunately I lost second gear just at the end of the first lap. I carried on using the top 3 or 4 gears, and then unfortunately I lost a couple of the others too, so I didn't want to get stranded, so I came in and we're going to change the gearbox.
They're going to change the gearbox. Last time they practiced it, it took 6 minutes, but we have another Audi in the pits. I'll go and find out about that, Sal.
Thank you very much, Andrew. And I was going, oh, that's one of the Yost open-top cars, and we were but, 22 minutes into this event, and it looked fairly routine. Looks like Alboreto behind the wheel, and that they were simply topping off with fuel. And keep in mind, I was going to mention, Andy Wallace's car in the warm-up this morning, Perry McCarthy was out, said the car was very quick. Suddenly, he limped that car in as well, and they lost second gear in the morning warm-up. So that may be their Achilles heel. We certainly have seen gearboxes affect cars in the past, most noticeably, Sam, last year Toyota.
Yeah, well, the best time for that Audi was 3:42, which stacks up pretty well. The BMWs and the second and third fastest Toyotas have all been in the 41s. So the Audi, for the first time out, is doing very, very well, I would say.
Stefan Johansson, who we spoke to earlier on this morning, seems to think that the car's got great potential, and Audi have certainly put in a massive amount of money and effort into this. 2 different types of car. They've got Tony Southgate design the coupe, who of course is well known for American for IndyCar design. And they have the largest and most extravagant hospitality thing here. I mean, it must be millions of dollars worth of hospitality.
Audi has taken it very seriously. You mentioned the 2 programs. Yost is running the open-top entry, and one of their leaders is, lead drivers is Didier Taze. He's with Andrew.
Didier Taze, a long way from Phoenix, Arizona, where you live. What was that stop all about? Was it a fuel top-up?
It was a planned, pit stop, and we tried to avoid the 2 cars, sitting here in the pits at the same time, and that's why we stopped our car earlier to make sure the rest of the race we're not going to be 2 car here sitting in the same area, and try to make a faster pit stop.
The coupe's had a gearbox problem. You thought you got it cracked with the open car?
Yeah, so the open car, the gearbox working fine so far.
Let's hope it stays that way. Thank you, Didier.
Thanks, Andrew. And I also wonder if they maybe didn't bring in that car a little early, since these cars have never run here at Le Mans, to get just a little bit of a feeling on the fuel consumption figures to be able to plan strategy for the rest.
Theoretically, they should go 13 laps, but as you say, sometimes if you're not certain. And one of the strange anomalies about Le Mans, as far as I'm concerned, is that, remember, it is a race that's run only once a year. They do have qualifying days, but practice is limited on this track. And quite often, teams make what I would call to be simple errors. They don't get the fuel consumption right, or they don't get, in particular, the driver comfort right. We were talking to Shane Lewis, as David suggested, and his helmet was being sucked off when he was out in the car, and the team was kind of ambivalent about whether they'd build him any kind of a protection.
Well, they put him a little flip up, but then Marco Apicella, who's driving with him, is a short guy, and he said he couldn't see over it. So I guess they took it off again, and then apparently Apicella himself said on Thursday night that his head was being buffeted around, but he didn't, so they didn't know what they're going to do. But I mean, as you say, millions of dollars of effort into these race cars, and you come here and something simple like your head being buffeted around can make or break your day.
You're looking at the number 7 Yost Audi, currently running in 9th position, chased by the Nissan, the Team Audi, and a BMW. We are a half hour into 24 hours of Le Mans.
Speed Vision's coverage of the 24 hours of Le Mans is brought to you by Porsche, who wish to remind you there is no substitute, and Yokohama Tire Corporation. Turn on technology with Yokohama tires.
Welcome back to Le Mans. Let's take a look now at our PlayStation course description. David, you were talking us through some of the segments in those early laps, and you can see this track presents some interesting challenges.
Well, it is an absolutely wonderful track to race for 24 hours on. Good long lap, 8.5 miles. In the old days, of course, that straight to your right went straight from Terre Rouge down to Mulsanne. We've now got the 2 chicanes, one right, one left, right, left. Mulsanne corner still very fast for a hairpin. Then that run down to Indianapolis, it road sweeps right twice, and then before that left-hander at Indianapolis, this map doesn't show it, there's quite a significant right-hand sweep right in the braking zone for Indianapolis, which is another second gear corner. Quick run from Indianapolis up to Arnage, another second gear corner, and out of Arnage, that run down to the Porsche curves is a bit deceiving. It's downhill, very fast. Then those Porsche curves themselves are absolutely tremendous. I mean, there's put a lot of stress on the car and the driver, and then a quick run up to the 2 Ford chicanes there, which are right on top of each other. But this is coming out of the Porsche. This is going over the Porsche curve now. This is the second of the Porsche curve. About to turn right here.
36 turns altogether, David.
A lot of turns.
A lot of turns.
This left-hander here is quick because it's got no camber helping you at all, and gets very slippery. And then, of course, when you meet slower traffic in those fast turns, that's what slows you up big time. Quick run up now to the Ford chicane. Into the pits. Into the pits.
This is the Toyota number 3, the car that currently is running in the 8th position, is making its way down into pit lane. Ukyo Katayama, Tsuchiya, and Suzuki get a good look at Ukyo. That is Ukyo Katayama, as he brings that car down into the pit lane. And I would anticipate, as we are now working 9 laps, that this is probably a planned stop. Again, as Didier Taze was talking about, to get them out of sequence a little bit so they're not piling up in the pits, and maybe again just to get a grip on some consumption figures.
Toyota has spent a lot of time thinking international for their drivers. This is the all-Japanese team. Andrew, what's happening?
Yeah, it's all very organised down here. The fuel is going in. They're getting ready to put 4 new Michelin tyres on. Obviously, they can't do that together. Katayama is staying at the wheel. This is definitely a scheduled stop. The first of many, of course, for Toyota.
A lot of scheduled stops if you're going to stop every 9 laps, boy. So it's a tough race this for everybody. Every crew member has to be just switched on right away, because there you see, going early, that's the sort of thing that can lose you this race. If you go off and you get away from the pit and say they haven't done one of the wheels up, it can get you stuck down the road.
Let's go back down to Andrew. Why are they still there?
Big drama down here. Katayama stalled the car. They didn't decide to put any new tyres on, and now he can't fire it up again. Now it's just fired into life, and Ukyo Katayama is back in the Le Mans 24 hours.
Gentlemen, if these pit stops look a little leisurely, it's because you first must refuel before you can touch the car mechanically and change the tires.
So the number 9 Audi, Sam, is back in. So problems continue for Stefano Ortelli. Christian Apton. Of course, we met Stefan Johansson, and looks like that car is going back into the garage. So the work is going to continue, and
Load
wonders.
UK cars.
Yeah. This program came together so late. I mean, they literally, it was about 2 months prior to Le Mans, this race, that this program came together. Andrew?
Yeah, well, this number 9 Audi stop now seems to be a scheduled pit stop as far as I can see. The fuel is going in. Obviously, just as we heard on the commentary, no one can do anything until that fuel is all in. It is now all in. And Alan is down with the Panos, I believe.
That's absolutely right, Andrew. I'm down here with the Panos, just a routine stop. They fueled it, they're checking everything out, cleaning it up, fresh driver. It started immediately. There's a small problem with the security stud at the front of the car. He's off, yes, it's just a completely routine stop. Andrew, what's going on up there?
They've got the right rear wheel off now, and they're looking around the brake area. Doesn't seem to be a particularly big problem, but 3 or 4 engineers peering in there, so we'll find out a little later exactly what that's about. They're also peering into the left front of the car, so quite a lot of discussion going on. I think Audi definitely aren't going to win their first Le Mans.
Problematic debut, but as I was talking about, this program with the covered cars came together so late. Yost had the open-top cars running for a while. They even ran Sebring with one of them, and they've continued to develop them. This one, I think they had all of 3 weeks real preparation to pre-qualifying, and Andy Wallace just amazingly was able to stick the number 10 car in with, they had problems throughout with body work coming off and the like. I mean, it's really tough to be competitive when you start a program that late. And as you can see now, it looks like they're going to peel the engine cover off. So the problem is far more extensive than that. And we'll keep an eye on that. That's Stefan Ortelli behind the wheel. And of course, they are losing some time at this stage. And the number 2 Toyota, which of course was running in 3rd position, is now in the pits. That's Boutsen Kelleners and Alan McNish. And let's go back down to Andrew. He's busy.
Yeah, the number 2 car is just about to pull out of the pits. This is a routine stop. It all looks very good. And no problem with firing that one up, but that goes back in the race. Thierry Boutsen at the wheel.
Boy, they left tires on. They just topped it off and sent it back out in a hurry. And you know, one thing that you're noticing is we're seeing a lot of the drivers staying on board. That is by design. They were figuring most of the drivers would certainly do 2 stints back-to-back in the early going, maybe even stretch a 3rd if they had to. They just can't. I believe they can't exceed. I think it's 4 stints. I mean, based on time, obviously, but they can be in there. That's the number 51. Beretta, Wedlinger, Dupuy, Viper. Yep, it's in. Andrew?
Scheduled. This is another scheduled stop for the Dupuy, Wendlinger, and Beretta car. And in fact, the other Viper, the 53 car, has just come in at the same time. But this is all scheduled stuff. They're very happy down here. The fuel hose comes in. They are changing tyres absolutely right up in the booth. The 2 Toyotas we've seen thus far didn't change tyres, but Viper, a heavier car, of course, they are putting new rubber on.
Still, that Viper is only 2,600 pounds. It's run almost 1,000 pounds lighter here than it is in the United States, and this has become a real challenger in European racing. It won a race just a week ago, a kind of catch-all race at the Nürburgring, which had an entry of over 250 cars, and the Viper emerged as the best of the best.
And that was in a 24-hour event as well, on board now with Katayama as we come up through the Dunlop curve here. Use, of course, goes straight on over there under the bridge. Now, of course, you've got this right, left, right kink.
And Katayama hustles it down toward Tertrouge, and we'll begin the long lunge down Mulsanne. We'll be back at Le Mans in just a minute. Welcome back to Le Mans, and our leader, number 1, Martin Brundle in the Toyota. You see right there, exits the pits, and there is the number 6 Mercedes of Bernd Schneider, and they almost collided down in pit lane, and Brundle had to get on the brakes huge, and there is Schneider. He was already heading back out onto the track. Brundle turned out of pit lane, and they almost got together, and no contact, but it looked as though Brundle almost stalled the car. And number 18, that is the Price and Bashir independent BMW V12, has had a quick spin entering the pits.
I think that's Bill Auberlen. Is that Bill Auberlen's helmet? That might be Bashir, who's the owner of the car, with David Price, who runs it for him. Tony Bashir, a very wealthy really gentleman race driver. That was Michele Alboreto leaving the pits.
Michele Alboreto bringing the number 7 Yost in for a quick stop. We also understand the 52 Viper Team Marica entry of Archer Bell and Mark Duez is in. There they go, and they are affecting a driver change at this point, and I think that's Justin Bell who just got behind the wheel. That is Duez, who has just stepped out, I believe.
Mark Duez, of course, was the winner last week.
Let's go down with Andrew.
Yeah, actually it's Tommy Archer that's just got in and got it out of the car. As it fires up and goes away. Here's Mark Duez. Now Mark Duez is confusing us because he's got a blue and orange helmet, just like Justin Bell. Mark Duez is one of motorsport's great all-rounders. Mark, you're one of the first people to come out after a stint. What's the track like?
Track is okay, a little bit greasy because of the traffic and the hot weather. Everything's okay. The people are very nice on the track, and even the fast guys and the slow guys. So it's really a good pleasure to be with them.
The Viper's really going well?
The best.
The best. The Viper is the best. Back to...
I'm standing here, I've got the BMW here, the V12. This is the car with Oberlin in it. It's just a routine pit stop. The fuel went in, no problems, but they're changing all 4 tires. The car's still up on the jacks. I don't expect any problems here. This is routine. This is planned. Yes, he pressed the starter. It went first time. He's out the pit. Totally routine stop.
It's a routine stop, but the entry to the pits was not
routine, no.
He had a quick loop and kept it out of the tires, and that's probably perhaps why they had to go after the rear tires of the car itself. And a little bit of a wiggle there as he cleared. Oh, look at the gravel coming out right in pit lane. Well, things continue to be very interesting here at Le Mans. We'll be right back. Speed Vision's 4th annual Speed Weekend International is packed with over 24 hours of live race coverage from around the world. The centerpiece of the weekend is our 20 hours of live coverage from the famed 24 hours of Le Mans. Formula One comes to North America in the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve in Montreal. Qualifying for the Canadian Grand Prix happens at 1 p.m. Eastern on Saturday, just a little bit later today, with race coverage beginning at 12:30 p.m. Eastern tomorrow, Sunday. The focus then moves from 4 wheels to 2 as we travel to Road America for the AMA Superbikes at 3 p.m. Eastern. Later that night, it's World Superbike action as the world's best take on the Nürburgring at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Speed Weekend International, Speed Vision's ultimate motorsport celebration. Glad you're joining us on Speed Weekend International this weekend. We are live at Le Mans. You are on board with one of the Nissans, and boy, this is awesome. There is one of the BMWs, and that is the fastest of the BMWs right now, and it is winding its way down that long, famous straightaway.
He's leading the race, of course, now after the pit stop, so the number, that's not the lead car, that's the 15 car, that's lying second at the moment.
He is lapped at 3:41. Which is extremely respectable. It's the second fastest lap, or tied for it with the number 1 Toyota. So he is actually moving very well with that BMW. Incidentally, if you want more information, check out the website, www.24h-le-mans.com. And you will be able to keep up with the
remember that,
standings and so forth. I'll give you that again a little bit later on, but I thought I handled that pretty smoothly, didn't you?
That was very good.
I'm about as conversant with the internet as...
Well, it does provide an awful lot of information, and certainly you can jump on there and follow the timing and scoring feeds and the like. There's the Conrad Giesse Porsche, one of the GTS category cars, as they have renamed the divisions now, and it is in the pits.
The slower cars here are fully 45 seconds a lap slower than the fastest cars.
How horrible.
That's a fairly
substantial. Can't imagine anything worse. In 30 seconds, spot is car number 63, which is Hubert Haupt, John Robinson, and Hugh Price.
But you know, David, it's rare, despite the speed disparity, that the really slow cars are the cause of accidents. It's more the intermediate ones that got caught up in their own battles, I think.
It's just so, it's so and it's very hard, of course, to judge the speed. I mean, these guys are still doing 155 miles an hour down the straight, and which is definitely too hard to hit things. But you got to spend a lot of time looking in the miroir.
That's what makes endurance racing so fascinating. Is more often than not, you've got variety of classes, number 15 in.
See the Cyclops light there? It's just directly in front of the driver. It's taped over at the moment. You can just see it as an indentation right between the two air intakes. There's a third light that they fitted in the last minute because the regular lights on these cars are so low that at over 200 miles an hour, particularly on that run into Indianapolis, they just can't see where they're going.
You can't get any throw. That's the trouble. If you start
too low down.
Yeah.
Oh,
the driver's head's on the deck as well. I mean, the driver's head's only about 18 inches above the floor.
The BMW is in pit lane.
The BMW is in pit lane. It comes to a stop right now. This is all very well organised. Best German style here. He doesn't want to drink. He's pushing that away. Yannick Dalmas is at the wheel. I think it's very significant down here that that car did one more lap than, of course, the lead car. Well, obviously, it is a fuel consumption race to a degree, and the BMW seems to be making great fuel mileage. No problems down here.
Well, Sam, you alluded to the fact that they ought to be able to get at least 13 laps. The BMW here has. Others have stopped as early as 10, a number of them at 11 and 12. So the BMW looking very strong. Yannick Dalmas, a very quick stop, able to get a few more laps out of the tires. They leave them on. Welcome back to Le Mans, and it is currently the number 15 BMW is leading, but there is the number 2 Toyota. That is the car that was started by, I believe, Thierry Boutsen, and it is currently running in the 3rd position. Of course, the number 1 car is being piloted by Martin Brundle, and Sam, you talked about the fact that Martin, it's an interesting story. He's not a full-time racer.
Of course, he has vast experience in Formula One. He's a tremendous driver, and he has been the sort of moral leader of this team for a couple of years now. But it's still a question, is he fit enough? Is he a little bit too old for pushing the car this hard? I think in every way he will pass those tests, but it is a question mark. And it is interesting when you have a team that runs only once a year, you get into certain types of problems that maybe you wouldn't if they raced regularly. But then again, that said, Mercedes, who you see leading here on the right of the screen, does race regularly, and they are the team that's had the problems here.
They have had their problems, but the Toyotas have had some 45,000 miles of testing, and the man who's been conducting most of that is Martin Brundle. This team came in heavily favored, and the question to Martin is, how does that feel?
Well, that's a nice situation, isn't it? And the reason we're favourite is because we've got a great car, great team, great tyres, good driver lineup, and that's why we're favourite. And all we have to do is go and do our professional job, do what we do best, and we should win the race, as long as we're not unlucky with, I don't know, a puncture or back markers or something like that. So I'd rather be here, sitting here as favourite, than sitting here thinking, how on earth we're going to beat those guys because they're faster than us.
In Toyota, a very strong lineup of drivers, but a guy that only races once a year now can still blow them all off. Does it make you wonder, I should be racing every weekend?
More than once, yeah, I've thought that, because we've had a variety of young drivers through the team and who are very highly rated, and I've beaten them quite comprehensively, and you sort of think, well, what a waste in a way. But you know, my career's behind me now. I did 158 Grand Prix and sports car races and this and that, and I drive for pleasure now. I have no stress, no pressure whatsoever. I love driving, and I think that's probably why I'm driving better now than ever before. Do I really need to jump back into the cauldron of being a Grand Prix driver? If a good chance came up, I'd take it, but in reality, I have to accept that's behind me. I've got a TV career now. I've got my businesses are going really strong. I've got my management contract with Coulthard, my own TV show, my Le Mans program. It's just great. I mean, I don't need anything else.
Well, and he also has a Le Mans win already in his pocket, so it's not like he's trying to get that first one in before.
He's also a Toyota dealer.
Well, so there is a connection there, isn't it? You know, you talk about Toyota, 3 cars, all that money. There's but one Ferrari racing here at Le Mans right now, and it has some problems, and Andrew's there.
Actually, it's Alan that's here.
Oh, hi,
I'll tell you what's happened. The guy came in complaining of handling problems, so rather than try and fix it out on the pit lane where not so many people can get on the car, they pushed it into the garage itself. plugged in the old diagnostic computer. It doesn't really help. But they're waggling everything around. Something is loose at the back end. They're now starting to take the rear wing off. So this is a little sad this early, because basically the car sounded really, really healthy. Engine was great, gearbox is great, but it's coming to pieces. They're going to have to fix this rear suspension. I think, Andrew, you got something on Audi for us.
Yes, I have. Well, they're still working on the Weaver Wallace McCarthy car. Remember, we spoke a little earlier to Andy Wallace, confirmed that there was a transmission problem. The car now has a new gearbox. They have adjusted the suspension. Andy Wallace, I can see just at the back of the garage, is just about to put his crash helmet back on. He's just done that now. So this car will be going back into the race in maybe 4 or 5 minutes, having lost, well, over 3/4 of an hour.
Well, it's interesting. They talked about they had changed one of those gearboxes in as quick as 6 minutes. This was not done anywhere near that quickly. So perhaps the problem is a little bit deeper than just that.
Andy Wallace advised us where to have lunch here in Arnage, where he lives. We went to that very place. It was absolutely terrific, but we paid just a huge bill. So thank you, Andy Wallace. We'll be right back. The 1966 24 Hours of Le Mans was the first victory for Ford at Le Mans and broke Ferrari's 6-race winning streak. Ford entered more than a dozen GT40s and hired many of the world's top drivers in an attempt to win after 2 crushing defeats. In the end, Bruce McLaren and Chris Amon brought the famous GT40 its first of 4 consecutive wins at Le Mans. 30 years later, and that 1966 Le Mans winning GT40 is still racing in the world's premier historic race events like the Monterey Historic Weekend, where the history of racing is never very far away. The winner, of course, is that number 2 car, and the Monterey races are visible on Speedvision. We do that show every year, and I think it's one of the best things we do. David, you drove the GT40s. What was it like here at Le Mans?
Well, of course, I drove the one with the regular 289 engine back in 1968-69, when they went back to the sort of original development car as opposed to the big engine ones. And they were just beautiful, beautiful long-distance drive cars. Comfortable, plenty of room in the cockpit, good air, had a nice ZF 5-speed box, lots of punch from the engine. And they really were a nice long-distance car. They weren't quite as quick as the Porsches, but they were very, very nice.
Good battle for the lead here going on. Bernd Schneider has taken the lead in his Mercedes, and he's being pursued hotly by the 2 Toyotas. You can see the reversal of the early pattern of the race, which had the 2 Toyotas out front and the Mercedes back behind. So Mercedes on the pit stops has turned it on a little bit, and we're having a real race here. This was thought to be possible, and when it was considered that Mercedes might have to withdraw because of the difficulties surrounding one of their cars flipping over twice, we thought that's the end of this race. But now they're racing, and you can see that they're very much an equal for the Toyota, at least at this point, David.
And here we are coming down this very fast bit. Now look at the front car here, how it bumps over those bumps on the approach. That's what happened to that car of Webber's. The Toyotas look better over those bumps. I noticed as they came down to the Indianapolis complex, the front of the Mercedes looked a bit unstable. It looks to me like their damping could be just a little bit at fault. It's hard to tell, of course, but
I also noticed too, David, on the turn into the Porsche curves, Schneider's Mercedes, when he turned in, he was sliding the car quite a bit in.
Those 2
Toyotas are just on rails. So he seems to be working, I think, harder. The interesting thing is, the best lap turn thus far was by Brundle in the early going at a 3:37.2. Schneider, just a little bit ago, was the first car to join the Toyotas in the 3:37 range, and he now has the second fastest lap at a 3:37.79. So he's definitely quick. But just in looking at it, and I mean, use it.
But he's trying hard, right?
Yes.
And of course, this is not just a battle for manufacturers here. This is a battle for nationalities. Of course, Germany, the strongest nation in the European Union. Japan, of course, a huge powerhouse economically on its own. Toyota, the 3rd biggest manufacturer of cars in the world. Daimler, Chrysler, part of which is Mercedes, is 4th. So a huge amount is at stake here. And of course, a major, major battle amongst the tires here. Michelin on the Toyotas, the French tire, and of course the Goodrich, the Bridgestone on the Mercedes.
This is fascinating. Again, through the Dunlop curves I was just watching, and Schneider, again, the back of that car, very loose. He is working it very hard. We saw earlier that the lone Ferrari was down in the garages, and Alan, I understand you've got more information.
Everything seemed to be going really well there, and they got a whole new back end here. So what, the handling went?
No, we have a gearbox problem now. So, and in the beginning we had some handling problem as well. So we don't know what is going to happen. Now in the fourth gear it's become very, very noisy. So I think we had to stop to change it.
But
no, for sure we'll get back in the race. But I mean we are going to lose quite a lot of time.
that's exactly what's happened to a lot of other people here. Like Audi had it happen as well. I mean, you just have to repair it, get back out there.
Well, he brings up a good...
They have problem. Well, I have no idea. I mean, I was just worried for my car because the handling was not exceptional, and now also the gearbox. We have to live with it.
It's motor racing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It is indeed motor racing, and well, I'll tell you, you hear that gearbox getting noisy in one gear, serious problem. That was the 32. You just saw a shot of it, the Riley and Scott Europe entry of Apicella, Rosenblatt, and Lewis, and it was hung up on the curbing, David. We had a quick glimpse of it, and that rear tire was spinning.
I wonder if this is going to bring the yellow flag out, a full course caution, because it seems to be high-sided on that curb. The left rear wheel was spinning violently, and he can't seem to get it moved. Great pictures here of the leaders. Unfortunately, we missed them going through the chicane, because that's where that Mercedes really uses up an awful lot of road. And boy, it looks bumpy down through that Indianapolis complex compared to these two Toyotas.
Let's see if we can get a quick look here as we watch them work. That's the Indianapolis corner. They now head toward the slowest turn on the track, the right-hander called Arnage, that then leads them through a sort of a weaving, long, very fast straightaway down to the Porsche curves. There is a great aerial shot. Let's take a look at the top 20. It is Mercedes of Schneider, the two Toyotas, the BMW, and the Team Mercedes running in fifth. And in that sixth spot is another of the BMWs. We'll take a look at the top 20. We are on board here at Le Mans. Boy, that is glorious indeed. Welcome back to Le Mans. We want to remind you, Speed Vision's unprecedented 20 hours of live coverage from the world's greatest endurance race continues immediately following the conclusion of qualifying for the Canadian Grand Prix coming up at 2 p.m. Eastern this afternoon. So check out that qualifying, then come right back, and we'll have a lot more coverage from Le Mans. So be sure to stay with Speed Vision throughout the night as well, as we bring you more coverage from the 24 hours of Le Mans than ever before, including, this was remarkable, including the final 14 hours live. The world's longest race on the world's fastest network, Speed Vision, and Speed Vision's Speed Weekend International. There's a look at the number 2 Toyota Motorsports Toyota that is currently running in the second spot, and you'll notice that the number 1 entry is right behind it. Watch what happened here. You can see Bernd Schneider coming up on one of the Riley and Scott cars. He had a pretty big lead, but David, it all went away because of a very hairy moment.
It did. He tries to go around the outside of his car, realizes he isn't going to make it, and look at this locking up there, smoke coming off the back tires. Bernd Schneider's heartbeat raising rapidly there, loses a lot of momentum, but does not quite lose the lead. The 2-car of Thierry Boutsen right behind him there, watching all that with eyes no doubt on organ stops, thinking, I'm about to take the lead of the race.
Yes, and Schneider just made, watch this.
Yeah, this is a replay.
This is a replay on the world feed, and it looks like he is going to get completely bottled up, but Boutsen dives and goes wrong. Schneider ducks right through and was able at the exit of the Mulsanne hairpin to actually get a little bit of his gap back. We're back to live here, and as they head into Indianapolis, it's not a huge margin, but it's bigger than it was.
Wow, those two Riley and Scott's absolutely side by side going into the Mulsanne. And that was a bit of a hairy old moment, huh?
Was a hairy moment. There is a good look. Tails away, as they say, of the number 6 Schneider entry. And one of the lead drivers in that Mercedes team is standing by with Andrew.
Yes, he certainly is. As you can see behind me here, all the Mercedes team is now much more relaxed. It's been a horrible morning for them. Pedro Lama is with me. Pedro, the right decision to start the race?
Of course, I think so.
Are you worried at all about getting into that car, which has been upside down?
Well, it's always, we must be careful what's happened, but we saw what's going on, and we hope, and I think everything goes well until now.
I mean, this is a great team, a very well-prepared team, isn't it?
Yeah, of course, it is.
And this could be a big thing. You were in Formula 1, now you're in GT racing and so on. This could be a big day for you.
Yeah, of course, the car is very quick, the race is good. I mean, must wait and see, because the race is really long. We must stand track and try lose as much as possible on the box.
Petro Larbi there, looking forward to his drive a little later in the afternoon.
Thanks, Andrew. Of course, last year he was one of the major players in the Viper's success in the GT2 division, not only at Le Mans but also at in the FIA GT series. He is a remarkable young driver, and he may be a rookie here in the GTP division. He's certainly not at Le Mans. There is a great group of rookies that are racing here at Le Mans, and Andrew and Diana took a look.
Peter, a lot of people see this race as a race for the old pros, the really experienced hands. Yet here you are, one of the young guns of British and indeed now Japanese motor racing. What are you doing here?
Well, I think everyone knows that Le Mans is probably the most famous race in the world, and I think, you know, why should I not have a go at it? So I'm here with Mercedes, and it's a great opportunity for me.
Now, most recently, I suppose, it helped to launch the career of Alexandra Wurz. Do you see this as a bridge into Formula One?
I think victory here certainly wouldn't help your career in any way, whether you want to go to Formula One or carry on in sports cars. So really, I mean, sure, I want to continue in single-seaters, but I think victory here would be fantastic, and, you know, it would guarantee a future in something at least.
Well, so Tiemann, what can Le Mans do for a young driver?
Actually, I think a lot, because if you win this race, I think if you think like Formula One or Le Mans, just sure, Le Mans is one race, Formula One has a lot of races. So compared to that, I think the whole World Championship Formula One could be the same like for young driver Le Mans, just winning Le Mans. You saw it on Alex Wurz, for example, it was a big step for him. So if you have the great opportunity to win here, it could be not too bad for the career in the future.
Mark, a very different year for you this year. Of course, last year you didn't get a drive. What's that been like for this time?
Yeah, well, it's good to be the lead driver in my car, and it's a main responsibility to make sure we prepare the car the best we can for the race. Last year, for sure, we learnt a lot, and I was just about to get prepared to drive the car after a burnt start of the race, and unfortunately the car failed. So that's Le Mans. So this year, hopefully, we're going to run a lot better than that.
Yeah, you talked about this circuit. You found it one of the best circuits you've ever raced on?
Yeah, it is. I'm still not fully to grips with it yet. You know, I think the hardest part for me would be the Porsche cars, because they just seem to be. I seem to lose so much time there, because I think, okay, I'll push hard through here, and I'm not even using all the track, you know. And then the next lap I go onto the grass on the exit of the corner. I think, well, what can I do right?
I think you really have to be a team. This is so important in Le Mans. You are not like in Formula One, just your car, and you try to improve and to beat your teammates. So here you have to try to make your teammate quicker and to support him most as you can, because this race is won by 3, and the mechanics are not only by one driver. And this is the big difference, I would say, to the single seater or to sprint races. And if you don't work together, I think you won't finish the race on the podium.
Well, Mercedes has long dedicated a lot of its resources to bringing along very talented young drivers and give them an opportunity to really show their stuff. And when they do, it gets recognized when you run for a program like Mercedes and you show success like Mercedes has done. There's a great shot from the Goodyear blimp of action down the front straight at Le Mans.
And welcome back here to the pits at Le Mans, and I'm standing here with Johnny O'Connell, who's just got out of Panos number 11. Johnny, everything seems to be running to routine order.
Well, no, not really. I tell you what, we've had, this hasn't been exactly the smoothest of Le Mans for the 11 car, and you know, despite the best efforts of everyone on the Vistian team, you know, we had a little bit of contact at the start. And the car actually, you know, we've been fighting an oversteering condition ever since we got here, and every session it's been worse and worse and worse. And actually, you know, aside from the little contact at the start, the car was very good, went through a good first stint, came in, went out for the second stint, and started running hot. So we came in a little bit early, and hopefully they solved it, but, you know, you hate for stuff like that to happen so early in the race.
Well, we'll keep our fingers crossed for you, Johnny, and I think, Andrew, you're with Audi number 8 now.
Yes, I certainly am. This is a routine stop. They have changed drivers. In fact, Emanuele Pirro just stepped out. Frank Biela has stepped in, and significantly, They are just wait now. Are they going? Yes, the car is going up on the jack. So they've toosed into the tyres here, the Michelins. But Audi certainly with this particular car in reasonably good shape.
Going after tires, as Andrew said, and a little problem there in the left rear. Boy, when those hubs heat up, sometimes the metal expands, and it's just very difficult to get the tire off. And it's a good thing it came off the left rear. Now it appears to be going on much smoother. Car is down. And one of the things, they do have to turn the engines off when they're refueling. And there has to be just that little moment of absolute fear at the pit of your stomach. Is it going to start?
There always is, and you love a car that starts fast for you. It's just so reassuring. And even some of the best engineered cars are reluctant to start, and they can really give your heart a tough time.
So there we see our leader coming through the Porsche curves. Up towards the Ford chicanes, very quick bit of road, hasn't pulled out much. He's got a lap car in front of him. That is one of the Audis by the look of things. So
indeed, the number 10 Audi Coupe.
Gave him some room there, but look how close the Boutsen car has pulled up to him now as they come into the Ford chicanes. Really tight all over the curb. These guys just like they're driving the Formula 1 car, and already that red Toyota covered in brake dust from those front brakes.
You notice the lights already on. It's not because it's dark. It's still very early here in these very northern latitudes. It will not be absolutely dark, really, until 11 o'clock at night. But the lights are on the leading cars because they want to be seen by the cars they're overtaking.
And we're seeing just how it's amazing how much time you can lose by a simple breathe of the throttle. They are racing so hard. The number 10 Audi running fairly strong at this point, staying right in it. But let's go down and talk to, I believe, Emanuele Pirot is standing by with Andrew.
Yeah, Emanuele Pirot has just climbed out of the number 8 car. Hot start to the race, Emanuele.
It's okay, I'm quite happy. I took it easy because for some reasons the car was slippery and want to look, to speak to the tire engineer to see whether we made the right tire choice. Apart from that, everything went ever so smooth. And
did you make the right tire choice?
I don't know, I have to speak to them. We have to see the conditions. We normally should have gone for 3 stops, but we stopped after 2 just to have a look at the tires, not to take any risks. And now we discussed whether to take another compound or not. Apart from that, I'm really happy. You know, the approach for us is not to be the leaders, but trying to make it to the end, hopefully. And we don't have so much experience about what pace to have, so we take it, quote, easy.
Quote easy from Emanuele Pirot. Back to the booth.
That is not what's happening at the front right now, Andrew, even though they're lapping in the 340, 341, 342 second range, David. As you can see on the video, we've just had a change for the lead going into that first Mulsanne chicane.
Well, a bit of traffic got them there as they came down there, and the Thierry Boutsen car, the number 2 car here, you see him getting right tucked in under the wing there, gets a good draft as they come down to that chicane, pulled up along the inside, blocks the turn for Bernd Schneider, and takes away the lead. Now is he going to be able to pull away?
Interestingly, too, I mean, even though Schneider was driving the wheels off that car, trying to stay in front, doing everything he could, when they got into that pass zone, he didn't make it difficult at all. I mean, you're not going to risk this early in the race doing something silly to block for the lead. He gave plenty of room.
This is a great battle for the lead, gentlemen. 3 cars covered by just less than a second here. 2 works cars from Toyota and 1 Mercedes-Benz. Mercedes questionable whether they were even going to run. There was talk all through the morning after that car of Mark Webber's flipped that they might withdraw the cars, but they didn't, and now we have got a great long-distance race on our hands.
Well, the Mercedes here in the Toyota sandwich definitely now being hounded by Martin Brundle in the number 1 car. That's caught up a little bit. This is that fast run down to the Porsche curves. Again, look how steady that lead Toyota is. Obviously, we're only going to see the lead Toyota. The Mercedes definitely not looking quite as stable in there. But on the other hand, the time's so very, very even. The Mercedes best lap so far, 3:37.79. The best lap of the number 1 Toyota, 3:37.253. So just half a second there, which on an 8.5 mile lap is not exactly even. seconds.
No, that's awfully close racing. And I have to believe when Mercedes was perhaps considering what to do, should they withdraw or not, the loudest voice to race, I'd be willing to bet, was Bernd Schneider. If you've seen him race, he is fearless. He loves to race these cars, and you know that the man has no fear to hustle the car like he has been, particularly in traffic, knowing what happened. Bernd Schneider at Le Mans, it's magic. Welcome back to Le Mans. There's a look at the number 3 Toyota that running at this point back in the 10th position as it ducks down into pit lane, and Andrew is there.
Yeah, I certainly am, and the short 5'2" figure of Takaya is strapped into the car. No problems down here. As the car comes into pit, very interestingly, no other teams do this. They put little fans to cool down the brakes. They're just pulling those away at the moment. Tyres will go on in just a second. The fuel still going in. Katayama, of course, has climbed out of the car. Takaya is being bolted into it. The tyres are going on. It's all very efficient here. This is a very international team, of course. It is actually run from Germany for Toyota, and it is run by a Swede. You can hear the rattle guns going now. The rear tyres are coming off. Alan, you've got a story down there.
Yes, it's car number 26, the Lola. This car had a lot of bad luck earlier on in the race. They came in for a routine pit stop, put in the fuel, took off the tyres and changed them. And then the mechanics smelt a funny smell at the back. It was oil, so they had to push it in the garage and change it. It's back in now. This time, luckily, just a routine pit stop, though. Cox got out and Coronel got in. And that's what they want to do. Just keep the thing routine. Fuel in, tyres change, driver change. Keep it out on the track. That's what it's all about. Back to the booth.
Coronel behind the wheel. That's the car that started the season as a Lotus-powered Lola, and they made the switch to the Ford. They just weren't getting the speed that they wanted. Take a look at the battle at the front of this one. Obviously, the number 2 Toyota made the pass for the lead. That's Schneider being hounded by Brundle, and there's the gap. The red car at the top of that screen heading out. But working into that picture is the number 17 BMW with Christensen, is putting in a great run. Here is the number 2 Toyota that continues to lead, but the lead 4 cars, folks, are now covered by 4 seconds. And of course, just a little bit behind it. Right before we went to break, we were talking about Bernd Schneider. He is a remarkable driver, has long been the leader of this Mercedes-AMG team, but he finds himself running second, and Alan de Cadenet asked him about that.
You came here for the pre-qualifying session in May, and we all thought you were what we call sandbagging, pretending to go slow, but it doesn't seem that's been the case, though. There's obviously, an aerodynamic problem, perhaps?
Absolutely not, because our top speed is obviously quickest on the straight, and that means the aerodynamic part is quite good. We had little problems, especially in the Porsche corners, and probably it's the name fault. It should be Mercedes corner, otherwise in that case it would be quicker. But honestly, I'm absolutely surprised that the Toyotas are so quick. All the others are on the pretty much same level, and the Toyotas 2 seconds even more ahead of us, and that means you have to work hard now.
And Bernd Schneider, when that's his job, working hard now, he does it, and he's been doing that here. Look at that, we're watching. That is the gap, first to fourth. That is it right there.
A little bit of Teutonic humor found its way into that there.
It did, didn't it?
Horner's named the wrong name.
Bernd Schneider is one of the fittest men I have ever seen. I don't think he's got an ounce of fat on him.
I haven't got an ounce of fat on him at all. His body fat must be just 0. But look at this now, that Toyota in 3rd spot. Only just behind him is the number 17 BMW. There it is. That's the fourth. There's first through 4th at the end of an hour and 25 minutes. That's not too bad.
3 makes in the first 4 places. 2 of them German, 1 of them Japanese.
And Tom Christensen giving that car an absolute ride here at Le Mans. BMW fans are going to be mighty proud. We'll be right back. Welcome back once again to Le Mans, and the accordion effect in traffic is being seen here frequently. That's the number 2 Toyota that was leading by about almost 2 seconds. That's gone. It got caught up behind one of the slower GTS cars, and Schneider got a real run, brought Brundle with him. They worked by that car. The BMW got stuck. Oh, and our first and second place cars make the move into pit lane. Thierry Boutsen in the number 2 Toyota Team Europe entry, and Bernd Schneider coming in again in the AMG Mercedes. And boy, the battle's going to go on here in terms of fast pit stops and pit times in pit lane.
And of course, it's so hard to rush the pit stops with all that doing the fuel first. Only 4 people are allowed to work on the car, except somebody can help the driver, and a technician can plug in and get data, retrieve data out of the car. So it's a fairly complex. They look awfully slow.
This will be second stop for both. Andrew.
Yeah, well, down here, the number 2 car has come in. Thierry Boutsen has climbed out of the car. Little Alan McNish, they have to adjust the seat a bit. He's being strapped into the car. Joanna Moss, who is actually the race engineer for this car, she's there. She had a big smile across her face just before the car came in. So they're obviously happy. They will take a tyre change. The fuel is still pumping in at the moment. And I'll come back to you a little later, hopefully with Thierry Boutsen. Alan.
Oh, it's really exciting down here now because we've got both car 6 and car 5. Both the Mercedes are in. Just routine pit stops, of course, but they've got to wait while they put the fuel in before they can change the tyres. Car 6 came in first. It's already got all its fuel in. Its tyres are on, and everything's looking pretty good. Andrew, what have you got for us?
Yeah, well, this pit stop continues here. Obviously, they take just about a minute when they're changing the tyres. The door is just being slammed now. Everyone is moving back, and I think the car... Yeah, Alan, how's it with you?
Well, it's pretty good down here. The number 6 car's left. That's Mercedes number 6. Just routine, filled it up with fuel, changed all the tyres, off it's gone. The second car, number 5, they filled it with fuel. The tyres are going on. Everything's looking pretty good. How about you, Andrew?
Yeah, well, our car's left this pit as well, but I think the lead changed during that series of pit stops there. So what a battle is going on down here at Le Mans. What a tremendous start to the race.
It did indeed change as number 6, Schneider, that car was able to beat the number 2 Toyota out of the pits. Not by a lot, but nonetheless it did. There is one of the Audi Coupes, the number 9 entry, and you see Christian Abt now getting in behind the wheel as Ortelli has stepped out of the car. Of course, when those 2 cars pitted, the Mercedes and the Toyota, Martin Brundle is back in front at Le Mans.
I ask you this now, gentlemen. The Toyota qualified at 2:39 and change. It's running at 2:37 best lap. Do you think they are now sandbagging just a little bit? The talk was they could run in the 34s, 35s. I'm a little bit surprised to see them not cracking
2:29 and change.
Did I say 39?
Yeah.
2:29. Sorry, David. So they're running, in other words, they're running about 8 seconds off what we saw them qualify.
I wonder, though, when Schneider went out front, and that's the team that they feel is their stiffest competition. I wonder if they weren't watching. I mean, Thierry's a pretty savvy driver. You don't win the Grand Prix he's won by not being smart. Seeing Schneider crossed up, pounding over curbs, getting the car sideways, they were staying with him without pushing the car anywhere near as hard. I wonder if they decided why.
Why exactly they would do. I mean, when Thierry Boutsen could see that Mercedes, he's thinking, we absolutely have no hurry here. You know, we're in very, very good shape.
In 1975 at Sebring, I know I stuck back with Peter Gregg. I was driving for the Works BMW team, stuck back with Peter Gregg to try to lure him into a mistake. He was considered our chief opposition. Managed to get that done by running slower than I was able to, but running with him until I finally trapped him into going wide at a turn. So there are some tactical maneuvers that you can sometimes pull.
Well, and I would think, too, Alan, as a driver, if you're a savvy driver, you can work with your team manager from the cockpit on strategy.
Well, that's exactly right, Greg, you see, and the whole point about Mercedes-Benz, they don't go racing to come second. And although they've had this horrible misfortune of the car flipping in 2 sessions, which we've all heard about and we've seen, nasty, nasty business, you cannot underestimate Mercedes. So whatever Toyota think they can do here, they better get on with it, because the very simple fact is that Mercedes-Benz are not to be taken lightly. Andrew, how's that lead Toyota going?
Well, it's just coming. I'm actually standing here with Ralph Kelleners, who of course has twice missed winning Le Mans so closely. He's watching this pit stop with me. Everything seems to be going very nicely, Ralph.
Everything looks nice so far, but as you can see, we're fighting hard with Mercedes and BMW. So we're going to see what the next 2 hours is going to bring, and then it's going to cool down. People maybe change for tires, so we're going to wait for that now.
It's a very, very big fight, and we didn't expect Mercedes to be right there.
Well, we were also hoping that they maybe would be a little bit slower, but you can see that Mercedes is always working very hard and that their performance is great.
Martin Brundle's just got out of the car. Did you see who went in? What was the schedule saying?
Kolar is in the car now.
Okay, so that's it right from one of our drivers here, and well, Kelleners twice he came close to winning this race. Maybe it's his year.
Well, perhaps that program certainly seems very, very strong. The number 1 Toyota, oh, very slow. Boy, it looks like that car is struggling to simply make it out of pit lane. And Andrew, what's going on?
Well, that's absolutely right. It did stall twice, but it is now away and no problems. They seem to get a little hot. We've seen this a couple of times with the Toyotas. Doesn't seem to be any consternation here. Thierry Boutsen, I did say I'd try and get him, but they took him right back to the village. He never stopped off for any of the media, but we'll catch up with Thierry later, I'm sure.
Thanks, Andrew. Remember that same Toyota, when it almost collided with Schneider coming out of the pits, when Brundle had to jump on the binders, it stalled then and he had to restart it. So maybe something we'll be keeping track of. Meanwhile, young Tom Christensen is giving the BMW Motorsport BMW V12 the lead at Le Mans.
Yes, well, they're just having a change here at the Viper. Tommy Archer has climbed out. Justin Bell has been belted in. He's going off now for a double stint. And this is all looking very good down at Viper. We're going to try and catch a quick word with Tommy Archer if we can push our way through here. And the doors, they're having problems actually shutting the door. Now they've gone back in with Justin Bell. The car is now up on the ramp, so it is getting its tyres off. I'll just try and grab Tommy here if we can. Tommy is actually, we can't grab him, he's gone back to the pit, but yeah, Viper looking very good down here.
That car, of course, leading when it came in, one of the Viper Team Orica entries, and it continues as they're continuing to, looks like now they're struggling with the tire. Now they get the left front off, and they are completing that stop. That is the lead car at the time of its pit in the GTS division, used to be GT2, and with the renaming of the categories here at Le Mans, it is GTS now, and a rather longish stop, as they alluded to, with the problems with the doors. Now that car is making its way back out on track. In the GT2 division, or the GTS division right now, it is that, we'll see what happens when they cycle through, but as we go on board now with the team entry at this point, and that is the new leader, would be, I believe, the number 51 entry. There we are, on board. And let's give you an update as to what's going on with the Dodges right now. They continue to look incredibly strong in GTS. The top 5 places are held by the Dodge Viper. And then you've got 2 cars in between the next one, which is a Porsche, and then one of the upper division Riley's, who's been having some problems, and then a Viper again. So Chrysler and Dodge right now having an exceptionally strong run. Not really a surprise in the GTS division, Sam.
No, they've really put their name on the books here at Le Mans and have become very much the favorite. Last year they were just still hoping for their first win. They got it in a convincing style. They went on, they won the championship. They're back this year as heavy favorites with basically everything worked out on those cars. They don't have teething problems anymore. They might have racing problems of one kind or another, but they are double strong.
Oh, they have perfected it. And of course, we alluded in the opening to the fact that Viper and the Chrysler also support some independents. One is Hugh Chamberlain's Chamberlain Engineering Team, and they are stalwarts.
Well, we're here. I think that sports car racing always will have privateers, but it's always irksome to find that people like whoever, Toyota, Mercedes, Porsche, any of the major manufacturers who come into these sort of places, they spend considerably more money on their food and drink than we do on the cars, the preparation, and the whole week. So it's always a bit of a giggle to us, but it's very nice. We're here next door to Mercedes. They're no fools, and we'd like to think that we're going to be there at the end of the 24 hours as well.
Hugh, you've been coming for 20 years. What's the element, the special element about this place that brings you back year after year after year?
I wish I knew. Every time I come back here, I think, what am I doing here? It's got another week of purgatory. But I don't know. There's something about the magic of motor races that we listened to on the radio many, many years ago, and we always thought that this was the pinnacle of motorsport as far as sports cars were concerned. And I listened to D-Type Jaguars and C-Type Jaguars and D-Type Jaguars doing extraordinary things down here. So it's always been something that I've loved very dearly. But as I say, it's damned hard work, and I really don't know why I keep on coming back. But it's a hell of a place to come to. You can't beat it, really.
Well, and as he alluded to, he's been here for a long time. We jump back on board with one of his major competitors. That's the number 51 Viper Team Orica entry, and oh, look at that. There's your bit of closing speed as we jumped onto the back camera, and rocketing past was one of their Mercedes. That is unbelievable. And speaking of Mercedes, right now Alan de Cadenet is down in pit lane with a driver who just came out of the number 5 Mercedes.
I'm with Christophe Bouchot. Christophe, you can never underestimate Mercedes. Your car seems to be running beautifully.
Yes, we have absolutely no problem. We are very happy because after the qualifying we lost the third cars, and that it was not so good, but now everything is okay. The car is very reliable, and we can follow the rhythm of BMW and Toyota. So now the race for sure, it's a very long race, so we cross the finger and we will see.
How hard are you driving the car though? It seems to be driven pretty hard to me.
Yes, true. The first thing was hard because the strategy of Mercedes was to follow the rip of Toyota, but not too much because for sure it's a race of 24 hours, and the second thing was more cool.
Thank you very much. I think, Andrew, you've got one of the great competitors, Terry Boutsen, with you.
I have got Terry Boutsen with me. He's got a smile on his face because he really did like that battle there with the Mercedes.
It was good. It was very good. We're just running on our pace, which seems to be the pace of everybody else. So it's quite good at the moment. The car's running fine. We had a good fight with Schneider, with the Mercedes, but it was a very fair move. I mean, he let me go, and I went by, and we braked both of us very, very, very late, a little bit too late even, but it was okay. Good.
Yeah, we enjoyed you passing him back.
Yeah, sure. It was good.
What about the car? Is it running as well as you'd expected? And did you expect Mercedes to be right up there?
Yes, we expected everybody, Mercedes and BMW, to be there. And it seemed like the BMWs are maybe a little bit slower, but they're using a lot less fuel than everybody, so it might be a surprise later in the race. But we are going, as I said, our pace at the moment. The race has not started yet. It will start probably tomorrow morning.
The race will start tomorrow morning. Terry Boutsen, thank you very much.
What a remarkable driver of 1984. We had some great drives together, me and Thierry. Look at this, locking up into turn 1. Just put new tyres on that 15 car, out of the pits, comes up there. As car was going by him, and he had to let him through in the end, and locked up badly there. I hope he hasn't flat spotted those tyres, which he's just put on. Good point, though, from Thierry about the fuel. These BMWs consistently go a lap or a little bit more than the Toyotas and Mercedes. And as this race unfolds, you know, we're only 26 laps in now. We're on our second and third stop. And these guys are just going to be running out 1 or 2 stops short if they keep that up.
Very true. The number 15 BMW that locked it up was just in for a stop. And it is Pierluigi Martini now behind the wheel, taking over for Yannick Dalmas. They're having a great run. Welcome back once again to the 24 Hours of Le Mans. And we are now approaching about an hour and 45 minutes into the 24 hours, and got a good look there at some of the traffic that's experienced here at Le Mans. You saw one of the Mercedes go through. We talked a little bit in the open about problems that Mercedes has been having. We've alluded to it, and it all came in the form of their number 4 car. They had 3 entered here, and in the qualifying, of course, they qualify here Wednesday and Thursday. In Thursday qualifying, number 4, look at this car. Didn't look bad from the front, but Mark Webber had the car flip on him, and you can see he was carried off. It was precautionary. He ended up fine, if not a little sore and stiff. Then in the warm-up this morning, in a different part of the track, it flipped again by itself. No contact, just running up behind a car and over a rise. It went over once again. It created, there's Norbert Haug of Mercedes. There was a great deal of consternation. Should they run the cars? Should they withdraw them all? Mark Webber, of course, had to be concerned, and he has to feel a bit like a cat who's using up lives, because in pre-qualifying, going into one of the Mulsanne chicanes, as they had to withdraw it, they closed the doors there, Sam, and Webber in pre-qualifying, going into one of the Mulsanne turns, the chicanes had a suspension pickup point pull apart and had a huge shunt then. It has been very problematic, not just for Webber, but certainly so far this week for Mercedes.
Well, of course, you so identify Mercedes with this race, but they've really only won it twice, in 1952 and in 1989. So they're very much looking for a third win. Porsche, for example, has 16. So Mercedes way behind in the overall listings.
Good look there at the number 65 Porsche, as you mentioned that, Mark. The Charoux Sports entry of Charoux, Gruslard, and Yver. And there is the number 56. the number 56 Viper. And Alain, you're there?
Yes, I'm down here with the Viper. This is the second Chamberlain car. First one's already in the garage with engine problems. This looks just like a routine pit stop to me. The usual, fuel in, clean the windscreen, get the new tires on, change the drivers, get out there as quickly as possible. Awful lot of brake dust came out when they shook off the wheels, I must say. That was at the front, and same thing at the rear. All that carbon dust all over the place. I'm trying hard not to breathe it in. It certainly won't be doing me any good. And I think, in fact, the drivers get to smell it too. It's not very nice. But otherwise, this is just a routine pit stop for Chamberlain's number 56 Viper.
And they've been having a great run too, David. They were in second.
Alan Cadenay gets down. He's worried about a bit of brake dust. He's got to be kidding.
Once again, the number 56 Chamberlain Engineering Viper came into the pits in second in the GTS division, a routine stop. It is back and on its way here at Le Mans, and we'll be back as well.
Speed Vision's coverage of the 24 Hours of Le Mans is brought to you by the new Dodge. It's about change. And Rolex, the watch of excellence the world over.
We are back at Le Mans. Good look at the leading Mercedes, currently running third, but it is the highest place of the Mercedes. We were talking about Webber and the car getting airborne and problems like that. And there's a gentleman who's standing by with Andrew Marriott who has had some severe problems of that himself. Andrew?
Yeah, well, Yannick's just having a discussion here with Gerhard Berger. I can probably grab him if I'm not too rude. Yannick, sorry to break into your discussion here with Gerhard. We've seen those Mercedes upside down, and you know about being upside down.
Yes, I heard, but you know, I don't thinking about it.
Now, what about the performance of BMW? You're right there, you're battling for the lead. Are you happy?
It's okay. It's okay at the moment. We make carefully with the car. You know, the race, it's so long. You know, it's just the first 2 hours is nothing.
You seem to, however, be getting very good fuel consumption, maybe compared with Toyota.
Yes, we try to do not so bad fuel consumption.
Yannick Dalmas, a man who knows how to win this race. He's won it 3 times, remember.
And it's amazing, isn't it, Andrew? It really puts it into perspective. A driver with that success in racing, 3 wins at Le Mans, he turned to you and said, "I'm sorry, that was my boss," when he was talking to Gerhard Berger. That is the number 64 Conrad Motorsports GTS machine of Conrad, Peter Kitchik, and Charles Slater. And it has had a fairly significant off into the gravel and down to pit lane. This is perhaps the sweetest sounding car that is running here. It is the Judd engine Lola, and it is in for a stop as well. And that car from Dams Motorsports, the Driot Arnoux Motorsports entry of, I think it was Christoph Tinsu, started it. And that car is absolutely glorious here and quite quick. They're a little quiet right now as to where they're running, but by no means count them out, and they are now trying to extract that number 64 Conrad
That
entry.
was lying in 34th position. It was in a fairly strong position too. It was ahead of most of his competitors in the Porsche brand, so they will be very disappointed about that. Well and truly stuck in that gravel.
These guys went down to the turns there at Mulsanne and Arnage and fell in love with this Judd engine. We've been hearing about it ever since. It must have been really something.
Well, it looks as though they have been able to extract that car from the gravel. When they pulled it out, that left front wheel looked a little suspect, like it wasn't quite working correctly. And yes, you're absolutely right. The sound of this Judd down the straight was absolutely phenomenal, and it was a very good pace. They're a little concerned, understandably, about the reliability on that. Now, just moments ago, we saw Yannick Dalmas talking to Gerhard Berger, who's the director of motorsports now for BMW, and we're wondering what's up with their sports car program.
Now, at the moment, your focus is also very much on the new Formula One engine from BMW for Williams. Does that mean that this is the last year of coming to Le Mans?
Well, it looks like, but still we have some discussions and decisions to do, and we're gonna in the next 2 months we're gonna see what we're gonna do in the future outside of Formula One. But it's clearly priority Formula One, and we have to put all our resources and concentration into it.
Sounds of the cars going very well?
The Formula One order, yes, we are quite happy with our first results on the testing. I mean, obviously it's still a long way to go, but we had a good test, and we are working very hard in the moment on the project. We have some good people on it. Man, let's see. It's close. Next season soon going to start, but I am confident that we're going to be not too bad in the first season, but I also know what it means the first season. We're going to have a learn period where we're going to go through like everyone else.
And talk about a program that has to be feeling some pressure here to do well here at Le Mans. The number 10 Audi's in the pits, Andrew.
Well, it was in the pits, I think we should say. It's just going now, and Andy Wallace has stayed on the wheel. Remember, they changed the gearbox on that car. It now seems to be running absolutely perfectly, so that's good news for the number 10.
Back in 1975, BMW wrestled with that decision. Do we go Formula One, or do we stay with cars that look like the ones we run? And I think they've wrestled with that regularly. They're not quite as big as Mercedes, can't afford to do both. And I think with every generation of leadership there, they wrestle with that.
And speaking of BMWs, the number 19 Team Go entry, that's one of the two privateers that are fielding last year's BMW V12 Le Mans cars with Hiro Matsushita, Hiro Kato, and Nakaya on board. And we now go and take a look at the number 12 Panos LMP Spider. That is the car that has been just brilliantly fast. Oh, look at it, carrying the slides through that section of track. Raven, Bernard, and Leitzinger. And Butch Leitzinger, we talked to him about that. And with the seating position, you sit so far back behind the engine. He said, you know, driving one of the Dyson Riley and Scotts, which he runs in the States, when the car slides, you just sort of feel it in the seat of your pants a little bit. He said in this car, when it slides, it's like you were absolutely being swung around a little bit because you're so far back in the chassis. He said it takes a little getting used to, but he said it's fun.
Looks like a big Caterham 7, doesn't it?
But you know, the interesting thing was when they went originally from front engine cars to rear engine cars back in the late 1950s, the guys all said, you don't have enough feel of the car. They were all used to swinging those 250F Maseratis through the turns and used to being out there at the end of a pendulum.
And it continues to run around, having a fairly strong run, well into the top 10, 7th. At this moment, Eric Bernard. On board the Panos, there's the Mercedes. We'll be back.